Hey guys, it's the comic book guy. Welcome back to my first official video as the comic book guy, except a quick gameplay video. So before we get into this, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other channel, the Star Wars guy. Link in the description. But getting onto it, today we're going to be looking at what Spider-Man first looked like before he was really popular in all the cartoons and really popular in movies. And this is really what he was first like. And the introduction I had to the character, other than shows, and I really like reading Spider-Man comics now. And I got into them because of Spider-Man the Animated Series, and I'm going to talk about that later. But for now, I just want to talk about how Spider-Man was created and what he first looked like. So Spider-Man was created in a series called Amazing Fantasy, specifically the issue Amazing Fantasy 15, which the rest of the series isn't that memorable, just a ton of random characters introduced and not except him really stuck. And this comic, it just shows the origin story. And it's kind of weird to look back on because we've seen the origin story a lot. But this one, you could tell it's really old take on it with how Spider-Man is portrayed. The first page shows kids saying he's Midtown's only professional wallflower and he's a bookworm. And I always felt like the bullying got toned down as it went on. And in the first Raimi movie, I feel like that one was like the most like the comics. And to an extent, I don't like that much. Don't get me wrong, I like the movie, but there's just so much of that. And with reading the comics, I don't want it to be exactly like that because even though I like it, I would like them to do something else. Actually, unpopular opinion, my favorite Spider-Man film is Homecoming just because of what it does, and it's just so fun to rewatch. I also love Into the Spider-Verse, Far From Home, Spider-Man 2, all the classic ones. But then, when Spider-Man gets bitten by the radioactive spider, we all know that he first starts off doing show business. He had this really weird costume. I couldn't find a picture of it, but unless you've read this comic, you've probably never seen it before. I don't think it's translated much, but it's pretty much just like a cloth on his face. And then he goes to wrestle after show business because of somebody tells him, and he wins against the ring champion, so this really big guy that's beating everybody. And then you get the death scene of Uncle Ben, and as you know, Spider-Man hunts the killer down, and then he arrests him. The rest of the comic isn't Spider-Man; it's just a ton of other weird characters. Even though this is the longest of the origin stories, but you just gotta see the origin story of this comic. It's a nice little comic, and later he gets his own comic line with Amazing Spider-Man, and we're also gonna be looking into the first few of those to see his early Spider-Man villains and his early stories. So in the first one, they made a mistake and called him Peter Palmer. And this is one of my first comics. I actually thought that's what he was originally called, and it's really confusing. So I looked it up, and it turns out that's just because of how Stan Lee alliterated names. And once he called Hulk Bob Banner, and you can look that up to see more information. I thought that was a cool fun fact. This comic also shows the first Spider-Man villain ever, one you probably never heard of as well, unless you watch the old cartoons or you read comic books. The Chameleon. So if you don't know who the Chameleon is, he has this belt that lets him transform into people once he sees them. I'm gonna be playing the Spider-Man the Animated Series clip right now, and then he is also not that big a villain in Spider-Man, but he's not the lowest. And there's some, I think he's like a mid-tier villain. Like he's pretty memorable, but he's not like insanely memorable like the Vulture, Doc Ock, or any of them. Speaking about the Vulture, the very next comic shows the Vulture fighting Spider-Man, and it's pretty awesome. I really like that. The next villain in the next half of the comic book is the Tinkerer. So I think the Vulture and the Tinkerer together is a pretty good combo. They don't join up, but you get two sides. The Tinkerer story is a lot weirder. You get to see aliens, and the Tinkerer isn't that memorable. He is in Homecoming, but I don't think most people know about it. I think he's less memorable than the Chameleon as well. But then the next comic shows one of the most classic Spider-Man villains of all, Doctor Octopus, and I really like how they show Doc Ock. I really like Doc Ock. He's my favorite Spider-Man villain, and on right on top of Venom, and I really like how they portray him here. And I'm really happy this is the first real representation of Doc Ock in comics. Then you get to see Sandman and Mysterio and some other villains in later comic. And if this video does well, I'll make a video about some of these guys teaming up in the first Spider-Man annual, the Sinister Six, which gets to show the Sinister Six teaming up. The original team, by memory, I'm pretty sure is Doc Ock, Craven, Mysterio, Vulture, Sandman and Electro, which I think is a pretty good combo, and I really enjoyed that comic book, so I actually really want to get into that one, but, for now I'm just going to be focusing on the early start of Spider-Man, and I really hope this video does well, because it took me quite a while to write the script. I did a lot of research on some behind-the-scenes stuff, and I'm really, really happy to make this because I'm a huge comic book fan. I have another channel, the Star Wars Guy again, where I cover Star Wars stuff. I've not uploaded there in a while, but I'm going to be planning on uploading very soon. I have this new series I've been working on for a while, and I'm excited to get on. But for now, I really want to thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. It could help the algorithm in the early days of this, and just tell me what videos you guys want to see about comic books. I'm not just going to be making comic stuff. I'm going to be analyzing some shows, some cartoons, and everything that I really enjoy, and I really hope that you guys like that. I'm actually gonna be reviewing a show that I'm really passionate about that's not really based on a Marvel or DC comic, and it's not fully based on comics either, but you should stick around for that. I really like it if you do, and again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.